125 genders by 3 bathrooms. How much climate change do we have? The Kate Daly Show starts now.
First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
Hey, Mr. Kissinger, my name's Luke Gradowski, but I just want to know, are you still giving out orders like Memorandum 200, where you said depopulation should be held? Sorry, just a question. Just ask him a question about Memorandum 200 that he wrote in April 24, 1974. It's an honest question. Okay. Kissinger, Memorandum 200. Depopulation.
We're on topic now. We came here, we give you the access. If you want to burn bridges, you can do that.
I don't want to burn any bridges.
One that's come up for a long time is, as we make the world healthier, is the population going to get so big that feeding everybody and maintaining the environment is going to be impossible. Here we can see a chart that looks at the total world population over the last several hundred years. And at first glance, this is a bit scary. We go from less than 1 billion in 1800, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.4 billion where we are today is happening even faster. So Melinda and I wondered whether providing new medicines and keeping children alive, would that create more of a population problem?
Wow, a population problem. Boy, do we have a lot to talk about today. Welcome, Kate Daly Show at your service and live. Wow. Bill Gates and, of course, Henry Kissinger. Yep. So much to say, and apologize about yesterday. I was not able to do the show yesterday, live today, and I will be on tomorrow, Thursday. So just letting you guys know. And I really appreciate all your support and all of those that have reached out. And January, February, and July are really hard for the show. And so I really appreciate your help, and we need it. So I'm one of the very, very few left not bought talk show hosts in the country, to be honest. And it's hard, and I don't have huge backers. So it's a people-driven program. It's a people-funded program. And I really appreciate all you that have reached out. So thank you for that. And all of those that want to help, please do. I need you. I need you. Midwest Melissa, how are you?
I'm good, but I have a question.
Sure.
Here's what I'm wondering.
Okay.
You know, Bill Gates was just talking about, like, he and Melinda were wondering if new medicines would be able to treat this. I'm wondering if his new medicines included the medicines he was going to give Melinda secretly to prevent her from knowing that he had picked up some kind of
that was
unmentionable disease on Epstein's Island. That's what I wonder.
Interesting. Well, population sure is a problem for these guys. And we're going to talk a little bit about this because we're in the agenda. We're the guinea pigs. And I don't know if people really realize that. I know that it's said. I know that, obviously the people that listen to the show are going to understand that we've talked about this many times on the show in a lot of different ways. But realize this, you are the guinea pig in their project, and they feel like they pull all the puppet strings. And every speech that Bill Gates gives starts out with the premise that we're overpopulated. And boy, is he here to help, said no one ever. But that's the context in which his speeches are given. And so I'm telling you that there's so much here that people need to understand about the agendas and about what's at hand. Where do you want to start, Midwest Melissa?
Well, let's start out with this.
Okay.
Has anybody ever challenged Bill Gates, asking him, what is his proof that there are too many people? Is there any proof?
No.
I'm going to propose today that that's an old argument. It goes all the way back into the 1700s, actually.
Okay.
And that it's full of baloney. It was always full of baloney, but the world was sold on a natural law. There's a law that we have all bought hook, line, and sinker without challenging that that is a completely false premise, and it was politically motivated then and now.
Let's
It's
go.
not even true. It's
Yeah.
not true.
Yeah, I'm with you on this.
So back in the 1700s, there was a gentleman named Thomas Malthus who was employed by none other than the British East India Company.
Okay.
And what he comes up with, it's Malthusian population. I don't know. He came up, actually, the thing that I was reading said Malthus even plagiarized the formula. But
Okay.
he came up with a formula and presented it as a law of nature. This is a law. It's undisputable that population expands faster than the capacity to feed that population, right?
Mm-hmm.
So while populations expand exponentially,
Mm-hmm.
agriculture can only expand geometrically, which
Mm-hmm.
means there's always going to be way more people than the food to feed them.
Okay.
Therefore, poverty and malnutrition and starvation and famine and war and all the things that go with that
Mm-hmm.
are a scientific inevitability. And that's the premise that Bill Gates is standing on when he says that. Look at how fast,
Mm-hmm.
look how fast these things are exploding. The population is exploding. Well, what they don't tell you was that Malthus predicted back in 1798
Mhm.
that the population was going to expand too fast and it would cause a problem.
Okay.
That they continue to chum the water, if you will, with this premise, and it's almost undisputable. If you buy, it's called carrying capacity, was
Mhm.
what Malthus called it.
Mhm.
The earth has a certain carrying capacity of how many people it can sustain.
Mm-hmm.
And if we exceed that, if the population exceeds that carrying capacity, then poverty and starvation are inevitable. And as I was reading this, I had to think, do I believe that? I have been
Yeah.
taught that. We
Yeah.
have higher lives,
Mm-hmm.
but is it really a fact? And the thing that makes me think that it's not a fact
Mm-hmm.
is that whenever we get to these places where the elites or the powers that be are going to say, oh, well, we can't, it's just unsustainable, we can't feed this many people,
Right.
and then we do.
Mm-hmm.
Are we feeding more people now than we were in 1798?
Well, I would imagine. Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the things that I read said that right now the agricultural capacity of world agricultural production is enough to feed, what is the population of the earth right now is what Gates said, 6.87 billion, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Right now they could feed 10 billion people with the current capacity. So why do we have starving people?
Mm-hmm.
This Malthus sets up an equation where if there's people who are starving, it's their fault because they have overpopulated, like rats or sheep or vermin or cattle, right?
Right.
And what if you're going to be an anti-Malthusian, you're going to say, wait, why are these people starving? Is it really because there's no food,
Mm-hmm.
or is it because public policy has prevented them from having food?
Right. And keeping third world countries for a reason, too.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very interesting. The guy that I was reading today, he has a Substack
Mm-hmm.
called Unbecoming.
Mm-hmm.
And he uses two really brilliant examples. He talks about the Irish potato famine. We've all heard about it, right?
Mhm.
Oh, so many people. The potato crop failed. And all of these poor Irish people began to starve. And they had to either leave the country entirely, which is what my family did, which is how they ended up in America, or they had to go and seek employment in some industrial wasteland for pennies to as wage laborers, where
Mhm.
they were continued to starve and have horrible living conditions full
Right.
of disease and pestilence and all kinds of overcrowded conditions, whatever. But Malthus provided the rationale for the landholders in Ireland
Mhm.
not to say, oh, the enclosure, kicking people off of their property, off of their land, forcing them away from their little freehold farms
Mhm.
into the city or onto an emigration ship. It has nothing to do with our the enclosures.
Mhm.
It has everything to do with them just being stupid animals that breed like rats.
Mhm.
It's their fault.
Right.
The
Interesting.
victims are the ones who are punished. So that's fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah.
During the Irish potato famine, Ireland continued to export food through the entirety of the potato famine. They were exporting grain, they were exporting butter, they were exporting all kinds of foodstuffs
Mhm.
while the people of Ireland starved. Where was the real problem? Was it really a population problem, which is
Mhm.
what we've all been sold on?
Mhm.
Or was it really a policy problem? I'm going to say it was a policy problem.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. There was a lot of policy problems going on back then. Yeah.
Well, not only does
Mm.
Malthus justify that
Mhm.
kind of thinking, it also justifies the kind of thinking that says, and we should not intervene because we have to get rid of the excess population.
Mhm.
Isn't that what Bill Gates says all the time?
Yeah.
We can reduce the population by whatever percent,
Mhm.
15%.
Mhm.
And if you just take this vaccine that'll make you sterile, or that will, whatever, impede your fertility, or if, and because Bill Gates is smarter than us and he knows what's better for us,
Mhm.
he knows that we're just really like little breeding farms out
Mhm.
here, just
Mhm.
nasty little things, that he should be able to mandate what it is that we are allowed to do, because Malthusian population demographics are a fact.
Right.
And they're not a fact. So the second example is also happened the British in India. And yet again, Malthusian population was used as an excuse in India
Mhm.
to what's the word I'm looking for? To make the people of India poor.
Mhm.
It used to be before the British came in that every little village maintained some kind of grain reserve. They would look out for one another if there was poverty, if somebody was going hungry, if somebody's
Mhm.
crops failed, whatever.
Sure.
They would look out for one another. They also, just before the British came to India,
Mhm.
India also had about 15 to 20% of the world's cotton production. After the British, that declines to only 2% because the British forced Indian cotton farmers not to produce locally or domestically inside of India,
Mhm.
but to sell their raw materials to the cotton textile factories back in England.
Okay.
So when you have Malthusian population under control, when you have that
Mhm.
idea readily at your hand,
Mhm.
you can do all kinds of bad policy. And if the people that it impacts are starving or hungry, you can say, well, that's just poor breeding people. These people
Sure.
are too ignorant and dumb to know what to do,
Mhm.
while you continue to exploit their natural resources.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's so ugly.
Yeah, it is.
It's so
I
ugly.
think there's lots of lies about world population. No one wants to look at it. No one wants to. Yeah.
And that pattern has been repeated globally.
Mm-hmm.
It's been repeated it was repeated in China and in Africa, all around the world.
Yeah.
Now, do we talk about carrying capacity so much now? not so much, right?
Mhm.
What do we talk about now? You know how the game is played, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
The game is played by if I came out, if I was a politician, God forbid, but if I
Mhm.
was and I came out and started talking about the carrying capacity of world population, people would be like, what are they talking about?
Mhm.
What we have been sold, it's still Malthusian population, but now it's sold as a climate crisis.
Right.
It's all about sustainability.
Okay.
We have to reduce the population
Mhm.
because it's just not sustainable. We have to, excuse me,
It's okay.
a part
Mhm.
of the game in India,
Mhm.
in Africa, wherever Malthusian stuff has gone, in Ireland,
Mhm.
has always been about land control.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true.
Is that going on right now in the US?
Mhm. In spades.
So who is going to control the land? In Ireland, it was the aristocrats were chasing the poor people off the land
Mhm.
by the enclosure movement, where they kicked people off the property that they had lived on for literally hundreds of years.
Mhm.
Well, what are they doing here in the US? What's the gig going now?
Right.
Now we have Bill Gates, who owns how much of the property of the US?
Yeah. A good percentage of our food.
An alarming percentage.
Mhm. Yeah. For sure.
What's happening to are we having a modern enclosure movement where small free farmers are being chased off of their property to make way for data centers, to make way for wild spaces,
Mhm.
to make way for, we have to have, wind farms or solar power farms or whatever. There's a million reasons why we're not going to be given access to the land anymore.
Mhm.
And you know why? We're not going to, where are we going to go? We're going to go and be happy in our little 15-minute cities where we
It's
get,
true.
25 passes to
Mhm.
leave a year,
Mhm.
and we can stick our head up out of our little urban hellscape
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
see that I can go see my children that live in a different state
Mhm.
25 times a year, maybe.
Mhm. Oh, yes. They want us very, very, very controlled. Mhm.
But we don't ever think really about what we've bought. I can't emphasize enough that we
Mhm.
have bought the overpopulation myth
Mhm.
hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah. Yeah.
Young people, and
Mhm.
now we're actually seeing some of the real impact of that. It's become too expensive to have children. It's too expensive to own a home. It's too expensive to buy healthful food. Welcome to Ireland in 1850.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Very, very true. In fact, I think they very much lied about China and India's numbers from the start. And remember, it was the American China Development Company back in 1895, and it was J.P. Morgan and Andrew Carnegie. And they were linking a railroad in China, and they were doing all these things. They had Standard Oil selling kerosene lamps, right, to the Chinese market. They had all kinds of things going on. And they're the ones that ordered a population study. China didn't. China didn't order that. But JP Morgan and Andrew Carnegie did. And when they said what the population was, the people in America didn't believe it. In fact, no one believed it. They said there were 255 million people, like a nice big round number. And there were only like 70, 80 million here. And so they were very curious about it. They were just saying, well, wait a second, how do they have 255 million? It doesn't make sense. Well, they upped the number. They said it increased by 40%, right? And in the next 30 years, under total economic decline, okay, people don't have babies in economic decline. They don't have babies when people are in poverty as much as they do when we're thriving, right? But they said they went from 255 million to 421 million, which they didn't. There was no way. And people were writing the newspapers saying, this is a lie. This is a bold-faced lie, and I'm very much questioning whether these population numbers coming out of China and India, which were very, very similar, whether that's actually true, because we weren't growing at that rate. And we were actually doing quite well with population, but we weren't even growing at a rate that strong. So I think it started off with numbers for the eugenics program to start. So if they could say that there were all these gazillions of people living on the land in the late 1800s, they could start a eugenics program.
Well, it's typical.
Yeah.
Because they have to prove that the population, we're just out here breeding like rabbits.
Yeah.
We're just mindless, ignorant things. And the truth about humanity is that we are creative and resourceful. And we ourselves, populations have a tendency to right themselves naturally, especially if there are economic opportunities, if there is, and in fact, what happened in India, as education became more readily available to more people in India, their population became more controlled than China's had under the one-child policy.
Yeah.
Even though India never actually said, we don't want you to have any more children.
Yeah.
Education, economic opportunity alone did that for India. Now, India is the number one. They have the largest population in the world right now. However, they are not. What is happening? There's a demographic bomb going off in China right now. That's the result of their one-child policy.
Right.
Whereas India's economics are expanding. So it's a very complicated thing. Populations. What I really, I guess my message is that we need to be really careful about what we accept as just fact.
Boy, isn't that the truth? I mean, look at even Darwin, Melissa. I mean, people accept Darwin as fact. And what's amazing is it was a theory of evolution at the time. It wasn't factual, but then we adopted it as fact. So it goes right along the same thing. I mean, Darwin was really used as a catalyst also to develop eugenics, but it's their eugenics program.
Right.
But it's
social Darwinism, I think, has been much more devastating than scientific Darwinism. Like, if we come from an ape or not is kind of irrelevant. You know, I'm here, I've got a brain, that's that.
I can't imagine that people think that. I mean, there's still apes.
Social Darwinism laid the foundation to say that the whole notion of survival of the fittest socially meant that people like the Rockefellers felt that they were called to be the arbiters of fact and fiction for the rest of the sheeple.
Right.
Because we know that it ties to this whole Malthusian stuff too, because if you're talking about survival of the fittest, when the elites have made very bad decisions for the people, and then the people suffer. For example, in Ireland, millions starved, people starved in Ireland, but the people who were at the top of the elite, they didn't starve.
Right.
Because they were the fittest. It provides an intellectual rationale for me to congratulate myself on how superior I am. And if that's not the definition of Bill Gates, you tell me what it is. He thinks he's smarter than all the rest of us. And he's entitled to tell the world how we should live because we're apparently too stupid to figure that out for ourselves.
Right.
Which flies in the face of everything that is all about freedom and human dignity and the ability for people to choose their life. Bill Gates does not believe in that. He believes he should be able to tell you what you need to do. He puts a vaccine out that causes, I think it's my understanding that India kicked the Gates Foundation out after they had terrible problems with young women and infertility from vaccines they had been given by the Gates Foundation.
Right.
So you tell me, does Bill Gates think he's smarter than the women who are taking the vaccine. He's going to decide if they're allowed to have children, not them.
Oh, it just makes me sick. Oh, makes me sick. I mean, you heard him on the clip coming in that, too many healthy people was a problem for him. So, who says that? Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Well, it reveals a mindset that is so hostile to human dignity. And yet nobody calls him on that. And now with the revelations coming forward out of the Epstein files, out of the Epstein papers, I think we're seeing people who believe that they are above the rest of the sheeple.
Yeah.
The rules don't apply to them in this quite the same way. They can do whatever they want. And children are not things to be treasured and cherished and loved, but they are objects, as we all are to them.
Right.
Oh, so vile.
It's amazing.
It just makes me sick.
It's truly amazing. If you guys think about this, China is very similar landmass amounts to USA. And back in 1929, they tried to say they had 421 million. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. We're only at about 335 million, right?
Right.
Okay, let's go back 100 years ago. Ask yourself if you think 421 million people lived in China. And that grew exponentially into 1.6 billion under Mao and under the one-child policy, not to mention economic hardship. So it's all a lie, and people really need to look into how they utilize the lie, which is what Melissa's talking about. It's like how the lies were utilized to give us agendas, and that's truly what it's about. And Kissinger coming along, you might want to talk about Kissinger.
Yeah, we will.
Okay.
Well, let's talk about Marx for just one quick minute, because Karl Marx, who's no friend of mine, but Karl Marx said the following. He argued that capitalism doesn't have a population problem. It deliberately creates surplus populations because they need a reserve army of labor that's so desperate that they will accept any conditions for work.
Right.
That was Marx's view of it. Okay, so let's fast forward then into the Cold War years. We're in 1974. Henry Kissinger creates the National Security Study Memorandum 200. That's what your clip coming in was talking about, that Memorandum 200. And Kissinger was advancing that population control should be an explicit element in U.S. security policy. That population growth in developing countries was a national security threat.
Only they could call it that, I swear. A national
security
You people are a national security threat. Oh, gosh.
Well, so here's maybe the inside track.
Okay.
If a developing country with growing populations began to demand what was rightfully theirs from their own country, that would put pressure on the prices for resources that the United States needed to beat the Russians.
Right.
Now, I think that whole way of thinking has multiplied exponential growth happening in that regard. But it's kind of interesting that Memorandum 200 targeted 13 countries for special intervention: India, Brazil, Mexico, and Nigeria, all of which were natural resource rich for things that the United States was targeting. It's just, they were afraid that people in those countries would rise up and say, no, we're not going to sell to you. And I think India kind of did some of that. And it was just very alarming to the United States. Like, oh my gosh.
Right.
Some of those countries had brain power enough, kudos to them, to say, the Russians might want to buy this too. We can set up a competing scale here and sell to the highest bidder. And the United States did not like that. So for the first time in American history,
Mm-hmm.
with that Memorandum 200, Malthusian population control became government policy. And it was pursued through conditional aid. We're only going to give countries aid if they can meet their population goals, or if they offer sterilization programs, or they promote population control as part of their development policy.
Right.
That's very insidious. It's a backdoor way in. We're only going to deal with you if you can reduce your population. Because if you don't have so many people, we can kind of keep our thumb on you.
Isn't this amazing? Isn't this amazing? They got away with this. They got away with throwing this out there and controlling other nations with this as well. Kissinger, bad news guy. And
So
yeah.
here's a great quote. This is from the Substack.
Mhm.
It says, the shift from fixed exchange rates to financialization. This is the banking stuff that's going on in 1971. Coincided precisely with the Club of Rome's computerized Malthusianism and the ramping up of population control as official U.S. policy.
Wow.
Club of Rome, like we're taking policy hints from them, right?
Mhm.
Well, we know we are. We know that that's true.
Yeah.
So in today's world, all of the Club of Rome stuff, it's still there. It's just shifted now because we don't talk so much about natural resources or colonialism or imperialism or whatever. We're not the British Empire anymore. Now it's all cloaked in climate and environmental phraseology. Everything is all about the climate.
Well, even in that report, Kissinger said, in these sensitive relations, however, it's important in style as well as substance to avoid the appearance of coercion. We don't want to look like we're forcing anybody, but we sure would like those abortions to keep going. And here's our geopolitical strategy to make sure that we have huge amounts of abortion. This was 1974. Really amazing that he got away with saying all of this and no one was questioning it.
Well, ask yourself, climate change has now become the opportunity for profit taking based on climate change with investment banks as the participants.
Yeah.
Remember, we talked a long time ago, I can't even remember what it was called, when they wanted to make our natural resources into things available on Wall Street. Remember that?
Yes.
That's making investment banks rich off of our own natural resources and excluding the population's ability to gain access to any of that. This is a rigged system in which the native population, if you will, the population of citizenry are being exploited against ourselves. And what's awful about it is that these same policies now have come home.
Right.
This is the policy that we're dealing with inside the US now. We have well, we can go back to the shift in farmland, the shift in how farming is pursued, the chemical fertilizers, terminator seeds, all of that stuff that we've talked about endlessly. The green revolution, if you will, has made farmers completely dependent on a on the system, while concentrating land ownership in very few hands, in fewer hands. Countries that in the past had been food independent have now become dependent. When the United States or whoever is forcing the sale of their agricultural goods into another country, it damages that country's own agricultural system.
Yeah. Yeah.
We should be buying American. We absolutely should.
That's true. That's true. And remember the farming, the whole idea of claiming that there were too many people. The other idea was that they had to go from normal and natural pesticides and normal production of food to their very amped up corporation owned pesticide. the new synthetic fertilizers and pesticides. So that was the introduction of that in the early 1900s. They said, well, we have too many people. Now we have to feed them. So we have to pretty much get farmers to go with this big mass production so that we can keep up with the population. But it changed it forever, and it allowed them to kind of cull the population by doing all of this insidious pesticide use, all the things that we're dealing with even today that are causing so many health issues. And we become a patron of pharma because where are you going to go, right? So you're going to go to a doctor and you're having all these symptoms, and all of these things are a way also to cull the population too, but also to control the food, because then that's when the food control came in, right? Is it started off with a lie, then it started off when then went to eugenics, and then went to this mass production of food where they said, oh, natural, normal fertilizers, they won't work. We have to go to bigger, more synthetic things, all owned by the Rockefeller families and all of those different agencies we've talked about on the show before. So crazy how they did it in layers.
This is kind of a brilliant statement here.
Mm-hmm.
The contemporary version of Malthusian stuff that we're talking about provides for structural adjustment programs that impose austerity in the name of fiscal responsibility, land grabs for biofuels or carbon offsets that displace millions in the name of sustainability. Development aid comes tied to population programs. The language has shifted from moral restraint to reproductive rights, from racial superiority to cultural difference, but the underlying structure remains the same. The powerful create scarcity and then blame it on the powerless.
Wow.
That's a brilliant, brilliant statement, and he's right on the money. I guess we can go ahead and talk about some of this. It even intrudes into women's, the whole population control has to do with women's reproductive rights. Since when have women's reproductive rights ever they never should have been about the right to do violence to an unborn child.
Right. Evil.
And it is. It's wicked and it's evil. And it's hostile to women. And it's hostile to children and hostile to the population at large.
Right.
And we've been sold that as a bill of goods too. We've been sold the notion that women should be responsible for population control through taking a pill or whatever. However, take the pill.
Right.
But we don't ever talk about what the fallout of it that is for women. It changes hormonally. It changes women's perceptions hormonally. It changes women who take the pill are more likely to be prescribed antidepressants. It causes problems inside of families. There's a whole slew of things that come from that we are unwilling to talk about because we have completely bought the myth that we have to control population.
Yeah.
We have to do it. And so if there's just one thing we can take away from this is challenge somebody on that. Somebody should be challenging Bill Gates about that right now.
Right.
What makes you think? What do they do when you say, and we've talked about that, you've talked about this a lot, there's always a shifting timeline, right?
Right.
Oh, the world's going to end in 1970. Oh, now it's 1980. Now it's every 20 years, the world is going to end. Nobody ever says, well, the world didn't end. Why do you keep saying that? What is the thing that changes every 20 years?
The climate control narrative every 10 years, at the end of every 10 years. And they start over.
It's always something.
Yeah.
It's a global cooling, global warming,
Right.
global change. It's overpopulation. It's this, it's that. And what do? Every time we talk about this, what is always the solution? What is always the problem that we're trying to address? If we're going to have global warming, we have to, it's overpopulation is the problem.
Yep.
Whatever, it's always over.
Every
if we have limited resources, it's overpopulation. If Germany has no fuel this winter,
it's overpopulation.
It's overpopulation. Maybe it's just bad policy.
Yeah.
Maybe the people in Germany should be standing up, and I think some of them are trying to,
Yes.
and saying, why do we have such bad policy that's
Mhm.
driving this?
Yes. Yes.
And that doesn't mean that we get to keep doing everything we do. I'm a
Mhm.
big believer in animal stewardship and,
Mhm.
stewardship over the earth. Maybe we do have to change our ways, but we first have to be convinced that poor people in the world are worthy of being fed.
Mhm.
And that
Well,
may mean that
that government
colonial-
doesn't do it. That churches do it,
government doesn't
neighbors and
live-
themselves. Right.
right.
Yeah.
Well, we all know that in
Mhm.
places in Africa, food has sat in warehouses and rotted away while the people starve.
Mhm.
That's not an overpopulation problem.
Yeah.
That's a bad policy problem. That's bad
That's
government.
that's a keeping them third world problem, and there's been a lot of emphasis on that with the NGOs, the non-governmental that are governmental agencies going in, and we've had a lot of people from Africa actually speak out about that and say, you're keeping us down. Why are you doing this to us?
Well, why are they doing
Mhm.
it? That is a question that legitimately needs to be asked.
Mhm.
To Bill Gates, why do you want Indian women to be sterile? Why
Mhm.
do you want that, Bill?
Mhm.
That's
Well,
not
I think he
anything
said
that
it
anyone
though.
should want.
I mean, he said it. He said, overpopulation's a problem for him. Too many healthy people are a problem for him. He wants to slow it down. Kissinger said the same thing. Margaret Stanger said the same thing. Basically, Darwin was saying the same thing, right? So they're all on board, and every speech that they give, if you guys go back and really study this out, I would say 99% of their speeches all have overpopulation in them because it's their key narrative. It's the one that rolled all the agendas out. Everything, even climate change, was all about eugenics. It was all about depopulation. And so they are just transfixed on this idea, right? And
Because it has been so
Mhm.
universally accepted
Mhm.
as a fact.
yes.
If you can get the population
Yes.
to accept that as a fact, everything else does roll forward.
Yes.
Everything else is blamed on overpopulation. We have to deconstruct
Mhm.
overpopulation as a problem
Mhm.
as the problem.
Right. And it gets funny because there are people out there that are saying, that we probably have around 4 billion, 3 to 4 billion, but we do not have the numbers they're talking about at all. Like, and if you notice, they're always pushing 8 billion. We're almost at 8 billion. And they say it often to what? Concrete the lie, to make sure the lie is told again and again and again, right? That's why it sounds crazy if I were to say, I think there probably are about 3 to 4 billion people, and that's about it. And our Earth, if you drive across the United States, if you're driving in China, if you're driving in all these places, there's a lot of empty space, a lot of open spots. And so we know, even in Canada, look at how much land is in Canada. So we know that we can visually see it, but our mind still goes back to there must be almost 8 billion people because they keep saying it. So that's a fact because we have to believe it. Yeah.
Who said that first?
Yeah.
That was someone in the Nazi regime said, if you repeat a lie often enough,
Yes.
the people will believe it.
Yes. Bingo. Yeah.
So here's a couple of takeaways. The real problem isn't too many people on the earth.
Mhm.
The real problem is too few people with power over all the resources.
Mhm.
That is the problem.
Right.
And if we want to refute it, we need to understand that scarcity, and it doesn't matter what kind of scarcity you're talking about, whether you're talking about scarcity of housing or scarcity of food or whatever, is a manufactured problem. And it comes from land concentration, resource extraction, financial speculation, intellectual property restrictions.
Right.
Why is it that Mexico's corn farmers were bankrupted
Mhm.
by subsidized U.S. corn imports? Well, why are we doing that?
Mhm.
Why did Mexico allow it?
Right.
Why are we allowing those kinds of imports that are bankrupting our farmers?
Mhm.
That may mean that we have to rethink what is really important in our world. And that might be hard for a lot of us. That would be a cultural shift. But the cultural shift really has to be that we begin to value human life over stuff.
Yeah.
And that's a really hard shift. We've all been trained to love that too.
That is so true. That is so
Oh.
true. And if you really think about this, I brought up the same thing with Iran, but you know, when we always think China and India because they're always pointing to those countries as the biggest bulk of the population. Okay. And that they're producing a huge amount of our population. And China is always our enemy. Okay. But isn't it interesting that we were funding them starting in the early 1900s? We were funding all of their stuff. We were funding hospitals, their schools, their research institutes, their scholarships, their you name it. We were over there supporting it. Okay. And paying for it. And I that also, we were the biggest backer, which means that we have a lot of control over China. So when they consistently say China, you know, is doing this and that, and that's the other thing that they use, the threat, right? So you have eugenics and then they have the threat of these nations, Russia and China coming to get us. But think about it. If we were supporting them and paying for them since the late 1800s and early 1900s, do you think we ever lost control of them? Because with the money comes control. And I don't think we ever did. So there's so many different narratives that they use this for. And I just think it's something that with common sense, we need to kind of really look at, right? In all these areas that you're talking about. It's like, roll this back and look at it with a whole different degree of common sense, because none of it makes sense, but we're told it often. Like you said, we just keep getting told the lie.
Right.
So
how about this for Bill Gates? Countries in the world that have the lowest birth rates are not those with the strictest population controls, but those with the greatest equality, education, and economic security. If we really wanted to make a difference in the world, those are the things we would be promoting. And then we would take our hands off and let them alone.
Right.
And it's just such a control thing. There's so much. I guess my final comment about this is that this is a PSYOP that began in 1798. It's been going a long time. The whole idea of population control has been used over and over and over again to control populations, to control people, to control what is Yuval Noah Harari, one of the advisors to the World Economic Forum, calls all of us the useless eaters. What are we going to do with the useless eaters?
Isn't that amazing?
It's a horrible thing to say, and it's a total denial of the value of human creativity.
Right.
The thing that has prevented mass starvation globally in the midst of these horrible rumors about, resource, depletion has been human creativity.
Ingenuity.
We have met the challenge over and over and over again to continue to feed the world. Not we, meaning not America, but the world globally. There's a woman out of India that talks about, she hates Bill Gates also. And she says, what needs to happen in India for India to become self-reliant again is for Indian farmers to be allowed to farm. Wow. Indian farmers have the knowledge and wisdom of how to farm in India. And Bill Gates is over there telling them what they have to do. They have to monocrop. And she's like, no, we do not have to monocrop. What we have to do is we have to do agricultural in India according to the climate that we have, the understanding of the plants that grow here that we already have. And I think she's right.
Right.
Vandana Shiva, I think that's her name. And she's brilliant. But she's not advocating for this program for America.
Right.
She wants this for her own country. And I'm like, yeah, I think the Indians have the right to chart their own course. Why do they have to grow corn in India?
Yeah. Why and how are they controlled? I mean, it's a good question.
Yeah. And by whom? But let's go back to that statement. The real problem is not population. The real problem is too many people are controlled by too few. And that's what the World Economic Forum is all about. That's what all of this is all about everywhere else around the globe. Is there's a handful of people who believe that they are more special and more gifted and more brilliant than the whole rest of us.
Right. And they're
we're
completely
kept on
brainwashed.
we're kept on the treadmill, just trying to get through the day.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not really unleashing the power of human potential to solve the problems of the globe.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, we have people like Bill Gates just telling us to kill our children and take a vaccine.
Right.
Ugh.
Like the euthanasia programs the Swiss have going right now, and some in Canada as well. But it's amazing how much pro-death is going to happen as far as in the future. More euthanasia programs, more. It just, the more death that you can get. I mean, there was even an article the other day, wasn't it, in Time, Time magazine, which is totally bought periodical anyway, and they were asking, gee, we just don't know what's happening with the youth and all of this bowel cancer and colon cancer, and we just can't figure it out. It's a mystery. And it's amazing that they can print this stuff, because the only thing that changed was the shots. So it's pretty amazing. And then blame it on smoking and drinking, something they've been doing forever. And so you'll get a lot of this, death, and we're not really going to look into it. We're going to pretend to look into it. And it just makes me sick, because eugenics has been on their mind since the like you said, really started in the 1700s, but then went on steroids in policy, and the things that were presented to us by the Carnegie Foundation and all these foundations by the late 1800s, early 1900s. So all of these so-called facts that were presented to us really aren't facts at all. So we just need more common sense in looking at the world around us, right? People have taken road trips before. We know that this isn't overpopulated in any sense of the word.
And you know what? Even if it was, I think humanity will right size itself.
Yeah.
But by the way, let's not take this off the table. One of the things that happens with the people who are looking for ways to control populations is war. And
They love their
so look at what's happening in Ukraine. Look what's happening in the Middle East. There's war. War is a way to balance the population as well. But who's always responsible for that?
Right.
That is hardly ever. I don't know anyone who is sending their own son or daughter off to a war, who's actively supporting, yay, rah, that's going to be a great thing.
Right. Yeah.
And
well, they know they're being used now. So we got that. We got that memo according to Vietnam. We pretty much figured it out by then. So.
Well, it should have been figured out after World War I.
Should have.
Truthfully, it should have been.
It should have. You're right.
But we're still doing it right now.
Yeah.
And Americans are particularly vulnerable to thinking, as long as we're winning, it's okay.
Yeah,
and
isn't that wild?
That's really not okay.
Like we're in a movie. Like it's like a Tom Cruise movie. And we have to have our hero. We always have to have the hero, and the media paints our heroes for us, but we always have to be the hero. And people just don't reflect on whether or not what we're doing is for certain people to, to profit and gain agenda by. It's like, it's so amazing to me that we just go with, well, we're always the good guys. So, therefore we can do whatever we want to do around the world. It's like, no, we really can't.
Well, I thought it was a really interesting comment that famine is hardly ever just a natural phenomenon. Famine is almost always the result of bad policy somewhere.
Like the potato famine, like the potato famine. Manufacturing.
The potato famine. And you know what immediately came to my mind was the Holodomor in Ukraine, of all places.
Yes.
In which Stalin created an artificial famine because he was after political agendas.
Yeah.
He wanted a political end. And so he starved the people who were growing all the food for Russia.
Yeah.
That's not a smart. So do I believe that we could have famine here in the US? Absolutely, I do, because I don't have faith in the people who are controlling and governing the policy.
That's so true.
It's not going to be because we can't grow the food. It's going to be because the policies are so bad that people will not be able to acquire food. Or look what they're doing now. They're saying, oh, you can't have your own backyard garden.
Yeah.
Why would anyone say that?
You know what's also amazing? You mentioned the Holodomor, and we didn't get told this in school. No one ever hears about it. You only hear about the Holocaust. You do not hear about the Holodomor. And the Holodomor was the culling between 1932, 33, like you said, man-made famine, manufactured, that killed, and between 7 and 10 million people. 7 and 10 million people in that region. And yet we don't ever even discuss it. We only discuss the Holocaust. It's the only thing, right? It's the only tragedy that ever took place. And that's just not true.
Oh,
That's just not
there's
true.
a lot of things we don't ever discuss. We don't discuss the killing fields of Pol Pot. We don't discuss.
You're right. You're right. It's only the Holocaust. Think about that, guys.
We
It's only
don't
the Holocaust.
discuss the Armenian genocide that
Mhm.
was perpetrated against Christians.
Yep.
Either.
Yep.
So we don't have to look far to look for a history of genocide.
But the reason I brought it up was for this reason. You're talking about kind of the culling, right? The depopulation agendas and how it's been on their minds. And that's really the basis of so many things. Well, you can pull off a Holodomor, and in a span of a very short period of time, you can literally kill off this amount of the population, 7 to 10 million people. You can kill them and no one ever discuss it. If the media and the government never bring it up, no one brings it up. Isn't that amazing that you can get away with it? That you can get away with the culling of people and it's never even discussed as a tragedy. That's crazy. That's how much they own the media. That's amazing.
It would be a great question for all of the useless eater people
Mhm.
to ask Bill Gates that
Yes.
question.
Yes.
Is the Holodomor like your ideal situation where we just starve a lot of people? That could
Mhm.
right size the population quickly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I don't imagine he would ever answer that honestly.
Well, did you know that if you bring this up and you say how many died, did you know that our Jewish friends will say, how dare you be so anti-Semitic and how dare you want our death? I'm like, no. We're just talking about another whole people that were phased out, right?
Right.
We're not, this has nothing to do with you. It just, why is the Holocaust the only thing we ever speak of? Doesn't make any sense. So
It does not.
unless you know
And
that they own the media, then it makes sense. And the
Then it
textbooks too. Yeah.
Well, the textbooks in the United States were owned by who? Robert Maxwell?
Right.
He's a good guy to
Mm.
consult about the
It always,
Holodomor, huh?
always goes full circle, doesn't it?
It's just crazy. But I do think that the
Mhm.
anti-human agenda is alive and well
Mhm.
in the world today.
Yeah.
And if you really want to stand for freedom,
Mm-hmm.
that's a really important and very overlooked
Mm-hmm.
place to make your stand, is on the false
Yes.
arguments, on the psyop that has been sold to all of us on global overpopulation. It's just a fiction. It's not true.
It is not true. Do you remember this song? Wait, hold on, because I know Susan's coming on. Hold on.
It's me against the world, I used to say.
Well, I say it now. It truly feels like it's me against the world. I swear to
Well,
you, it is so bizarre out there, and I know you guys
not
are
on
feeling
Wednesday,
it.
Kate. On Wednesday,
Yeah.
it's you and me and
Mhm.
Susan against the world.
Ah, there we go. I really appreciate my Wednesdays. By the way, I'll be live tomorrow and Thursdays. I do some Thursdays, but I'm live tomorrow. So tune in and I'll take your calls. We're going to take callers tomorrow. I'm going to take callers tomorrow, but also go get Cardio Miracle, please. I swear to you, it's helping me lose weight. I'm sipping on it all day. It's giving me energy. My skin feels great. I'm telling you, I'm sleeping better. Oh my gosh, there's so many benefits. Please go get Cardio Miracle. If you want to make a change, that's the best way to roll a change out is cardiomiracle.com/Kate. And then it also helps me stay on the air. It also helps the show. And then, so you're getting something for helping the show. And then also, by the way, this week only, allfamilypharmacy.com /Kate. The link is on my KateDalleyRadio.com, and it's like 47% off on ivermectin and membendazole and fembendazole. Did I nail it? Anyway, I always screw up those names. But it's like 47% off, so please take advantage of that. But I know Susan's coming on, so I appreciate you, Melissa. Thanks. Oh, and by the way, weather update, Midwest.
Oh, for me?
Yeah.
Oh, it's sunny and 60.
Sunny and 60. Nice.
So this is the first false spring.
Yeah.
I'll let you know when we have the second false spring.
Okay.
Because there will certainly be more snow before we're done.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Oh, yeah. I mean, it even snowed here in the desert. I'm in Utah, and I'm in the desert part of Utah, and it even snowed-ish, blistery little snow. But it did for like an hour or two. So, hey, we'll take it. Anyway, thank you. I really appreciate you. Thanks, Melissa. All right, Susan, are you on?
Yes, I'm
Awesome. Okay, get closer to that mic if you don't mind.
right here.
Thank you. All right. So can't wait to hear what's on your mind. So let's go. Oh, by the way, Dr. DR. So the Dr. Ardis Show, ARDIS. Okay. The Dr. Ardis Show. If you just use the code word Kate, you can get some of the things that he's got over there, the selenium and the liquid D3 with K2. It is amazing. I love this product, and put it in like a drink, put it in something that you drink, and even in the morning, and it'll make a big difference. So up those vitamin D levels as well as Cardio Miracle too. But I mean, there's just some amazing things if you go to my website, KateDalleyRadio.com. Okay, Susan, what do we got?
Oh my gosh. Well,
So much.
Lots of things happening. There was a big Antifa trial happening. They were doing jury selection, and this is going to be the big first federal Antifa terrorism trial. Everyone's super geared up, all systems go. There was a mistrial declared day one. The jury selection, that is, they didn't even get through day one of jury. Why, you ask? Because one of the attorneys for the defendants, there's 9 defendants, was wearing a political t-shirt in the courtroom. So they know. They absolutely know. So it makes you wonder if it was intentional
I love
sabotage.
fake courts.
Oh my gosh.
And fake court proceedings. So fun. So fun. Oh
Yes,
gosh, you've
yes.
got to be
So
kidding.
So Andy Ngo, bless his heart, he has been trying to wake people up to trans terror, trans serial killers, Antifa, how dangerous they are. He got run out of the country. So he's currently living abroad because he can't live in the United States safely, but he's continuing to report. And he said, Fort Worth, Texas, U.S. District Mark Pittman halted jury selection after noticing that Marquetta Clayton, a BLM activist attorney for one of the defendants, was wearing a politically charged t-shirt with images of Martin Luther King Jr. and messaging about
Who paid that guy to be there? That's what I want to know.
Jury.
Inquiring minds.
I mean,
Hey, even on the jury, who paid that guy to be there? So
yes, Marquetta. And it was like, I love it. It was like all systems go.
amazing.
Somebody,
They vet that stuff pretty good. So that was definitely a paid person to be there to ruin, to do something to this court proceeding, which is kind of funny because they can't let people know that Antifa is paid. A paid product of government. So
she said, the Judge Pittman said, I don't know why in the world you would think that's appropriate. And she's like, she mentioned Jesse Jackson's death. She's mentioning all these political.
Oh, did he die?
And yes. And it said the judge told her that wearing the shirt would be akin to the prosecution wearing a shirt with, quote, I mean, this is humorous, Donald Trump riding an eagle with an ICE flag. It could bias or intimidate the jurors towards a particular view. And so now, and Antifa supporters are set up outside the courtroom.
Of course.
And now they're agitating and becoming aggressive, saying this was in violation of this attorney's First Amendment rights, that she should have been allowed to wear the civil rights t-shirts. And it was absolutely absurd.
Well, they vet this stuff so well. So it just screams. It's just so It's just such a bot manufactured situation. So that's
So she was shown this
Mhm.
attorney leaving the courtroom with her shirt turned inside out, as if she said, okay, I'll fix it. Well, too late.
Mm.
Now the whole trial is scrapped. They have to start over. And what's the point of that? He said, now instead of 90 jurors that we're going to interview, potentially, we're going to interview 120 people in the jury pool. 120 people. And so this is just going to go on and on. It's almost like this was never destined to get going with, because there's 9
It's all
defendants.
fakery.
I think there's 9 different defense attorneys. I'm not quite sure, but there's a lot of defense attorneys. So any one of them can screw this up, right?
And they will, because you're never going to know that Antifa is bought on record. So this is going to get really interesting. Yeah.
You can raise money either way. So now they're spinning it up against the judge. They're putting out posts like, the judge did not like that potential jurors. He didn't like the potential jurors. He's a crook who must be removed from the case. Trial to resume next week. Everybody who can has to get to Fort Worth. And so they're trying to make this the next big cause, right? Let's gin up outrage, and it's like exhausting.
Lots of drama. When people look at the last year, I just, for anybody not realizing that the game, like Candace said, it's all fake and gay. And I have to agree. After 38,000 hours of research, I have to agree that that's the truth. But it's so much fakery. And until people realize that, look at this last year of complete and total drama. Everything is drama, no action, just drama, lots of drama, right? Drama is high. It's like watching a soap opera every day.
This was supposed to do something. This was supposed to be a case.
It won't.
This was supposed to be convictions. This was supposed to be, and they hardly got off the starting, off the starting blocks, and a mistrial, and for people who follow and hope, your hope just gets dashed over and over.
So even going back to like Benghazi, Susan, even going back to, you name it, where hopes were dashed and nothing ever resulted, nothing ever happened to anybody. How many times do you think it has to happen where everything is dashed and the hope rises and then falls, hope rises and then falls? How many times before we finally get it in American society that we're constantly being lied to? Doesn't matter who's in office. Doesn't matter which side. Just the lies, the lies, the lies, the lies. Always the drama, right? Being played out within the media. He said this, she said this, he's doing this, she's doing this, but never anything happens. There's nothing concrete that happens. I mean, look at Pam Bondi and the look at the stock market. So, there's all those kinds, I look at Pam, and here I'm a Republican conservative, and I look at Pam like she's out of central casting. And so I just don't understand why we have such a hard time realizing how many times our hopes are raised for us and then brought down, and then raised for us and then brought down. I mean, if you were married to somebody that did this to you 24/7, you would finally get an inkling at least a couple years in, right? And but we're like this battered spouse. We just keep going back for more hopium. I don't even understand why or how this keeps going on.
Well, that's why even if you're left or if you're right, like if you're a genuine person, it's very hard to read the news because the news is either stoking your anger or it's dashing your hope.
Yes.
So it's just,
oh my gosh. We've had the Epstein thing for a decade. And everyone's like, yeah, it's finally coming out now. I'm like, it will never come out. Only the manufactured files, which will be most of them, are coming out because it causes drama. You're never going to know the evil that's happening. Government, you can't trust government to give you their own secrets. They're not going to do it. That's why it's so insane that we're insane enough to keep believing it. I don't know.
Well, if nothing can dash your hopes. Let me just tell you the story that is percolating. We have found out Les Wexner is still alive. He was the head of Victoria's Secret. He made Jeffrey Epstein a wealthy man, sold his the biggest property in city of New York to Jeffrey Epstein. And you know, he claims he hardly knew him. So there was a deposition that the Democrats, it's a Republican-led committee, but the Democrats said, we really want to do a deposition on Jeffrey Epstein. So who did it were the staff members. It wasn't even the politicians themselves. And head Republican Comer on that committee said he had a previously scheduled dental appointment and couldn't be there. This is Les Wexner, one of the biggest characters in the whole Jeffrey Epstein saga. And he admitted to this group, the Department of Justice, the FBI has never interviewed him.
And they never will.
And to that, you have to say, what, okay, your definition of reality has to include that fact.
Yeah.
And then, you know, this is a conspiracy. It is a government-led conspiracy. It is nothing that's going to get resolved. There's going to be anger. So the more that things come out and people are picking apart the Epstein files and are outraged over this or that, or finding Pizzagate was actually real and that they gaslit us to believe it wasn't, then you go, and then what? So do we turn our anger and angst on Pam Bondi? Do you think, can she really personally do anything? No, she's being told what to do, right?
They all are.
Well, you know, what did she say? Oh, those files, they're right on my desk. I'm just going through them. They're just right there. I'm just when they want to act, they act. When they wanted to take action against the J6ers, why did they move? They moved fast, unless they kept people in solitary confinement, and then they just dragged it out and dragged it out and dragged it out.
Right.
So, but you know, it's good for people to understand in terms of what they're up against. So I just wanted to review that Les Wexner, because this just happened February 18th, today. This just happened today. So it wasn't recorded, but people came out and said that Wexner repeatedly called Epstein a world-class con man. He called him diabolical, a master manipulator. In other words, Wexner himself says, I was a victim of Epstein.
Well, it's all focused on Epstein so they can look like they cleaned it up and everything's fine and no one's an Epstein, that they're all Epsteins, but no one's an Epstein. So,
yeah. He said he never witnessed or had any knowledge of Epstein's criminal activity, never a participant nor co-conspirator, never saw or heard about Epstein being in the company of a minor girl, which is funny because Trump was on record in the media saying, yeah, Epstein was a close friend, a good friend of mine, and he liked the girls, he liked them young. Everybody knew, right? He said the relationship was strictly professional and financial, not social. He was at the island once, but he was there with his family, he said. This is so people can update their sense of reality about who is lying to you.
Well,
you know,
they all are.
when you're a parent, you can pretty much all of a sudden tell a lie. And if you can't, you get good at it pretty fast because, you know, having the wool pulled over your eyes. And this was, so the Democrats, so this is actually making the Democrats look better because no Republicans were there. The Democrats said this is totally bogus. There would be no Epstein Island, no money to traffic women and girls if it were not for the $1 billion from Les Wexner, obviously. So the fact that they trotted him out like a show pony today to do this, to go through, like, this is what's called performative. We're going to Hillary Clinton after Benghazi, remember they dragged her out, like, what are you gonna, and she was performative and it's a big skit. And personally, I think it's why Republicans who remembered could never vote for her ever in a million years. But nothing happened to her. Obviously, she's still traversing the world, you know. And I just think that people, if you are going to believe, he told them that he's never been questioned by the FBI or the Justice Department. And Mr. Garcia, who was the Democrat in charge of this today, said he's someone who's been named by survivors, someone who is in the files more than most people. someone who was clearly the financial benefactor to Jeffrey Epstein. What the hell is going on?
Mhm.
Okay,
But this is the drama, like the
yes,
drama that's invented that you're talking about. So
this
as
is
you're
the
talking about all these
performative-
details, this is the fakery, the drama that's being played out over and over and over again in the press.
anger,
Yeah.
the performative
Mhm.
anger, exactly. Until you realize this is performative,
Mhm.
your hopes just get dashed again.
Mhm.
I used to say to people, women who were in, domestic violence situations, this has happened 3 times. What if this happens 50 times? Oh, well, then I would do X, Y, and Z. Well, then why aren't you doing that right now?
Mm.
It just doesn't seem, but
Mhm.
they are in denial. We're in denial about that they're lying to us. It is a stage play. Nothing will happen.
It's been a year and nothing ever really does. And there's always a big reason for it. There's always some big catalyst drama playing out for us to not get any liberty back. So it's an ongoing game of fakery.
Yeah, he says, Mr. Wexner said he wanted to be
Mhm.
there so he could be helpful, which is funny because if he's never talked to the FBI or DOJ, he could have been doing that all along, but he chose not to. Interestingly,
Well, he's protected by the spooks.
And they don't want him. They really did not.
Well, they don't want him to be exposed as a spook, so they just keep it on the down low and act like they can't interview him or be around him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and for the new people, this is
Mhm.
called a limited hangout.
Mhm.
We're going to have a little bit of information to
Uh-huh.
look like we're taking it seriously.
Yeah.
Leak out or call the people in. See, we did our job.
Mhm.
And if you really want these people prosecuted, you need to reelect us and you need to give us more money so that we can do this properly. This is just like the roads in California. Jess will finally fix the roads if you just approve X billions of dollars that then go missing, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
The roads do not get fixed. They look like they're pretending to fix them. They set up to fix them. Like, where are the people?
Mhm.
So that's what this is. And it's really disheartening to have to tell people this and to convince them this is what's happening.
Like the truth.
The reality, it's
Mm.
sad. It's
Mhm.
sad. But, ultimately, our Christianity, I think, will save us.
Mhm.
And there is a mass movement of people who are pretty outraged by this, like are shocked for the first time. And that's what I'm saying. Thomas Massey came out and said, Les Wexner has been involved. Yes, as you said, for 10 years.
Mhm.
But some people who are younger are just waking up to this.
Mhm.
And I do think there is hope in, there is a revival of Christianity. There is a revival of church going. There is a bit of a revival
Mhm.
of people seeking truth. And I think that it might be that mass
Mhm.
that then has an impact. It's going to make it harder for evil to just operate the way it wants to.
Mhm.
I think that could be true. What do you think?
I don't know. I hope people, it's funny because we really need to get close to God. And I don't know if people realize what that means and have a lot more faith and lean on him a lot more. Not only to understand all these lies and the fakery, but also to get direction on what to do and how to be a really good asset, how to be not a spook asset, but like an asset to actually help people finally get out of this thinking coma that they're so deeply embroiled in. And it's really, really difficult to do because the brainwashing is real. And what's ironic about it is your Bill Gates and are the most brainwashed among us, really, because they believe in all of these narratives. They believe, just like we were talking about with Melissa, they believe all this stuff. But the people are as brainwashed, and we just keep getting fed the drama. And it's like watching a never-ending soap opera for 100 years. And here we are still hooked on, even though we know the sets are fake, the actors are fake, and everything's fake, we still get hooked on the drama because it's emotional. So we still get hooked into all these little details, like all the things you've been discussing. Those are all the details, and they want us fighting about them. They want us arguing over them. And it's so amazing that we haven't caught on yet as a mass populace, So
yes,
amazing.
because really behind the scenes,
Mhm.
as much as we focus on Jeffrey Epstein and his sexual crimes,
Yeah.
he was doing the science stuff, but he was
Mhm.
also committing financial crimes
Yep.
and making statements like, really, what we want to be doing. What did he say? In a 2009 email discussing finances with Roger Schranks, Epstein wrote, "This is the way the Jew makes money. Let the Goyim deal in the real world." He was
Mhm.
talking about selling, quote, selling short shipping futures, so that you're betting on markets, you're betting on futures, you're not betting on the cost of things going, you're betting on the cost of things going up and down. And so it's like scamming the markets. It's
Mhm.
like the finance. And I was really impressed. Somebody who's been fighting this for a long, long time and is part of a class action suit on MK Ultra is Elizabeth Nixon.
Mhm.
And she just says this is the energy system for him. And she talks about the fact that her mother was an MK Ultra victim, and now there's a class action suit in Canada that she's a part of to fight against this. And she says she thinks people in their 20s and 30s and 40s are starting to really understand this for the first time and recognize. She said her family, her father came from one of these bloodlines and was connected to the Churchills and Princess Diana and all the rest of them. And he would get invited to these hunts. He would get invited to these events, these private men's things. And she said he avoided them like the plague. He was super social, life of the party, and he would never, ever go to those. And she suspects because he knew what really did go on behind the scenes. And she said she says what's happening too is there's big, it's like bowling pins, right? The bowling ball of the Epstein files, and people are having to resign. So there's a big talent agency here in Los Angeles, Wasserman, and he is having to sell that agency because he's mentioned in the Epstein files in a way that does not come across well. People were quitting his agency, and so he's having to sell it. And it's like people are getting revealed and big business things are happening. But she said she ate in the same rooms as Ghislaine Maxwell, and she got invited to those things, and she didn't really realize who she was. She knew Maxwell and then figured out, oh my gosh, he was like a Mossad spy. She worked for the Mirror, and somebody said, hey, would you like to take these documents for Maxwell to Israel? And she said, yeah. She was young. She says, sure, that sounds like fun. He's like, I'll meet you at the milk bar in the city. She's like, what's a milk bar? He said, oh, you're not Jewish? She goes, no. And he's like, never mind. She's like, come on, I'll do it. But she said she was there. He was like the lizard at the top of the heap. And she said, but this was what was interesting to me in her most recent article. She said, I was a journalist. I didn't even brush my hair. I rarely wore makeup. I spent my life being harassed by married men in these circles, in these elite circles. She says, I grew up in a world where women were honored on the street, in the house, in the culture, treated with respect as givers of life. She was raised as a Christian. But here I was in a small wood-paneled lift at the House of Lords in Parliament with the Earl of Bessborough, 50 years my senior, and he pushed me violently into a corner and plunged his hand down the front of my dress. And then his wife invited me to their Christmas party. She goes, I did not go. And she said, but it went on and on like this. She says, there was a young oilman, John Bryant, came to town. She said, tried to bully me and taking him to a ball. Who did he end up with? Fergie licking her toes. Remember that whole scandal with Fergie? She said, it was unbelievable. She said, this is how it puts Ghislaine Maxwell in context. She said, I grew used to being pimped out by older women met through my work life. Lord TK wants to have lunch with you. He wants you to call him. TK was a famous and powerful publisher. I was a writer. He was also 40 years older. Will he try to bully me into sex? Yes, she shrugged, as if I had to suck it up and choose whether I wanted to take the opportunity or not. Same with Earl Bessborough.
Mm-hmm.
I was warned by another society fixer. It was the price of admission, and I needed his approval. So I started thinking about this, was this always the case with all the men at the top? I think a lot of this comes out of a sense of royal privilege. You know how the king or whomever had the privilege. You were a subject, right, of the crown. You were not independent. You weren't not a sovereign citizen. And so they had like dibs on you. And so I think this continued. So she said, one of these women had said to her, there's always going to be men like this, essentially like, you better get used to it. They're always going to be there. You might as well just work this system. And she's like, no, I'm not going to work this system. So the other person who's been implicated in this is Steve Bannon. How many people on the right have listened to Steve Bannon all this time?
I've been on his show. I was on his show once.
I mean, and now
Once.
he was this big defender. So then, but she said that the New Mexico ranch, which has really not been in the news as much, that Roger A., director of Pulp Fiction, wrote. He said the stories about Zorro Ranch are starting to trickle out. That's where the Hollywood did their worst, and it was far worse than Sean Combs, who should rot in jail. That was a place of torture, ritual abuse, murder, and cannibalism. And this is here a young man describing Tom Hanks' involvement, and Hanks' cruelty is broadcast by victims. He's still escaping retribution. So I think the notable message about a lot of this is there is a price to pay for admission to the game, game of politics, the game of Hollywood. You have often said, why was Trump allowed to become president?
Yes, you don't get to be president twice. And
it's like, oh, we voted him in. We went to the voter roll, the polls. And
we did not. We did not vote him in. Elections been, the software has been in place since 2004. And before that, there was always election fraud. But since 2004, we haven't stood a chance. So
yes. And she makes a point about the culture that I've never completely appreciated to the degree that I do now. She reposted a thread that somebody said, when a woman, when I was 9, all I wanted was clothes from the Limited too. That was Les Wexner. When I was 12, all I wanted was glitter lotion from Bath and Body Works. That was Les Wexner. When I was 16, all I wanted was bras from Victoria's Secret and shorts from Pink. That was the young underage. And she said all these brands were owned by alleged conspirator Les Wexner during the height of his crimes. Realizing how much of our millennial girlhood was tied to unspeakable acts on girls like us is a particularly brutal gut punch. So I think this generation takes these things a lot more seriously, and it gives them an ick that they didn't know was important to have, like a morality pinging on their soul that they didn't know was important to have. They're so concerned, these upcoming generations, about sustainability and the planet and what we're doing. And now they realize they have literally, through their buying choices, funded this cabal. And I think that's why it's hitting them harder. And I kind of agree with that it's making that. And she says, why is our film and TV so depraved? Where does all this depravity consistently come from? And if you can trace it back to the fact that there's groups that say, here's the price of admission. You do these things, you agree to these things. Then it makes more sense, I think.
Sure.
So anyway, that's it. And she also talked about how the Bregans, who you've had on the show,
Peter Bregan,
and who talk about the drugging of America through all these psychotropic drugs. She said they brought it to her attention about the GATE programs, the gifted and talented programs.
Oh, that's a biggie. That's how they find their spooks. The gifted programs. It's how they, through all the way through college, of course.
All the way through college. And I happen to know that's true because I know a family member who kind of, put their toe in the water of that. and it's serious business. They
Mhm.
come looking for you. They're hunting because your intelligence and your essentially, yeah, your intelligence is an asset to them.
Yep.
And so the military is going to show up first, right? And they want you. So I thought that was very, very interesting. Elizabeth Nixon, who's had to spend 20 or 30 years coming to grips with the fact
Right.
that's the realm that her family tried to get away from.
Mhm.
That she would have been raised in had they stayed in the city and not moved far out into the country away
Mhm.
from that influence.
Right.
Anyway, I just thought it's super interesting. She points out too that in Christianity, all
Mhm.
authority is given to us on this earth through the sacrifice of Christ, and any demonic forces these abject, vicious losers
Mhm.
conjure up in the blood rituals is easily beaten off by any Christian. And
Right.
that is where the power comes from, our Christian sensibility, our testimonies and understanding of Christ. And I totally agree with that. I think
Mhm.
that's why I watch Candace Owens. I'm not saying I agree with all her theories of everything. She doesn't even know what some of her theories
Mhm.
entail, but I feel like her Christian faith is giving her strength.
Mhm.
And that to me is a testament, and that is what you need to face the horrors of the reality of this world, and to see things through that filter and not be afraid
Right.
and not be
Mhm.
discouraged.
Yeah.
It's actually encouraging. There's
Mhm.
so much to be encouraged about. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like I said, we need to realize what it means to have faith, what it means to rely on God. That's really what we're talking about is a nation getting back to God, because well, I could go on and on about that, but I don't want to. I'll do that tomorrow. I'll talk about that tomorrow. So, but there's just we need to up our game on faith, on knowing, and also extending that into praying for common sense and praying for the truth of things.
Absolutely.
We don't usually pray for that.
Yes, to pray to see the truth. And I think to pray to love people, so that we can gather more people, we can support more people who we might not totally agree with, but help them see what evil is and understand they've been deceived too.
Yeah.
We're victims of this, indoctrination and brainwashing, and not to disregard them
I don't
out
know
of
what
hand.
that dinging is. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. And I just think that if that is the case, we will gain more people to our side.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so I think that's really important. I wanted to pivot for a moment to something about our phones. So a lot of this material comes through our phones. We're learning about things through our phones. But I was just adding a device to my phone, a Kindle actually, and I realized it was picking up all of my neighbors' Wi-Fi, like all these things, like 10 different Wi-Fis in the neighborhood, right?
Right.
It's like, what do you do? And somebody posted this thread, and they said, let me just explain how this works to you. It says your phone scans for Wi-Fi networks 24/7, even when you're not connected. And what intelligence builds from those scans, because your data gets sold. So from a single capture, they can map that your phone is connected with 36 different Wi-Fi networks that you may have passed by in your day. That will identify the 7 locations where you've been and your complete daily routine. And then this makes a network map. And it is identified. So for example, the church, your home, your office, the gym, the grocery, the cafe, your kids' school, and your neighbors. Yeah, that's fine. That's okay. And then it says, so when your phone sees your neighbor's Wi-Fi from your house, they know you live next to that address. When they see school, they know you have kids. And when they see your office Wi-Fi, they know you work 8 to 5. and there's all this raw data. So they put that into AI, and they create a timeline of everywhere you've gone and what you've been doing. So this is the part of pattern recognition. With AI, they can tell you hit the gym every Monday and Wednesday. You go to the cafe at 7 a.m. You go to church every Sunday. So if compared to your family, they know your routine better than you do.
Oh yeah.
But
yeah, for sure.
This all gets, involves social, it's called social graph mapping. It connects all your relationships. It involves device advertising, the ID linked to your web browsing, GPS coordination, cell tower triangulation, Bluetooth proximity, Wi-Fi, fingerprinting, and then of course, geofencing.
Right.
So for people who don't remember what geofencing is, if you go into a location, geofencing captures all of the cell phones identification numbers of the people, say in a church or in a stadium. What is it that you always say if you're going to go to a protest?
Yeah, don't bring your phone. and also think back on how many people are stopping any of this. You know, I interviewed Tulsi, right? Is she doing anything to stop any of this? Have you guys heard about her in the news at all, trying to stop any of this?
No.
Is anyone talking about it on both sides of the aisle? No. It's always the drama of Epstein. It is not about this. It's not about our spying network, and no one's changing it. So if we think we're kicking the deep state's butt and we're getting rid of all this stuff and we're handing America back to the people, I'm so sick of hearing that BS. We're not doing anything about it. Like no one is. I remember when Obama campaigned, okay? And he's gross, but and a liar and a fraud. He literally campaigned on the removal of the NSA. Do you guys remember that? He got in and put it on steroids because the presidency is always controlled. I just happened to be watching the movie Nixon. And of course, this was an Oscar winner. So the narratives in the movie Nixon are all what the government wants you to walk away with. But I'll never forget there was a clip of Nixon basically saying that he doesn't really have any control, that he's controlled, that he's told what to do. And but he wants to be in control. He's not. And I reflect back on that piece because it was such an admission allowed in that movie. And I don't think anyone even thought about it at the time. This was like 30 years ago when that movie came out. But it's so fascinating to me how not one single party, nothing, no one's talking about the removal of the NSA or even tearing it to shreds or bringing it down or even removing a lot of its policies and things that it can do. We have those FBI centers around now everywhere. They were never supposed to be where they are. And we've got the CIA centers. They were never supposed to be all over domestic soil. They are. And no one's doing a damn thing about it. We're just stuck.
Oh, no.
We're stuck.
No, because the public-private companies that are involved in this are donors.
Yeah.
Donors. And they're the ones who get the people elected. So from passive scanning, who you are, where you live, where you work, what you believe, who your friends are, what your routines are, what your weaknesses are, porn, gambling, are all from passive scanning. In other words, there's no warrant. There's no consent and there's no notification. And so this is great because they can just do this without having to do any other thing. And it's so the other thing, it goes on and says this too. Here's the companies. Ground Truth Company is selling church geofence data. Mobile Walla, profiling every device owner. Placer/AI, tracking where you shop. Cube, BIQ, harvesting location pings. SafeGraph is a company selling point of interest visit patterns. They call it location intelligent for brands and campaigns. Essentially, they're selling your life. And so then there's actually a group, a posting that talks about what you can do your iPhone settings and your privacy and security, location services, network and wireless, you can turn it off. But you're still vulnerable because of Bluetooth and cell towers. And so actually your only defense is to leave your phone at home. You can't really escape this.
No.
And I think it's this is the part that's really important for people to understand. The reason this is important and for political purposes is that foreign governments buy this data from brokers.
Mhm.
Political campaigns are using it for micro-targeting.
Mhm.
So micro-targeting is, the Christian woman who has 3 kids who are between the ages of 5 and 9, and like this micro interests of those individuals. It also is influence operation identifying high value targets.
Mhm.
So you maybe make a lot of money or you're very active in your community. They target you. Propaganda gets personalized to your movement patterns. We saw this in the Minority Report. Remember
Mhm.
where he was walking down the street and all the ad campaigns are targeted to him.
Mhm.
And so they can hit you with AI generated content designed specifically for someone with your exact profile, which is so mind blowing because that can be millions of different AI generated content. They
Mhm.
can, it's so mind blowing. I don't
Mhm.
think we can actually put up a psychological defense against how they're targeting us.
Mhm.
And they'll use these profiles, for example. So they're using TPUSA as an example. They have a super feed, Arizona government.
Mhm.
They make this, they call this ministry outreach, but it's surveillance wrapped in religious language, funded by foreign money. So when we say, oh, our Wi-Fi fingerprint, that's just one layer.
Yeah.
And the idea that what are foreign governments going to do with this? Why are they so interested?
They only do what we tell them to do with it because we control them. We control them with money and favors and all the rest. And yep, they're completely controlled. So it's so funny when we always say that, when it's like a national security thing because foreign governments are going to get a hold of it. We control all of them. There isn't anyone we don't control. The government, the spooks. Anyway.
Oh, absolutely. And it's really, in a way, a super government because it just involves a lot of people who can bypass. They can bypass most of government. They all just interact with each other and make agreements and then tell their governments what needs to happen. So they're just bypassing everyone. And so when our politicians say, oh, we're going to get this pushed and we're going to make sure this doesn't happen, it's almost like, what do they say? Arranging deck chairs on the Titanic. You're doing these cosmetic things, but the deeper things are what's making the bigger difference in our lives. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in.
Yeah.
With the super high taxes and the bad roads and the terrible schools. There's a case working its way through the courts where a girl from Puerto Rico went to college and then sued her school district. She's like, I'm illiterate. I can't read. I can't write. I go to college. I can't read or write. They're like, well, how did you graduate with honors?
Right.
And they're, well, here's all the ways they helped me trick the system by having me, listen to texts instead of, she goes, but they wouldn't teach me to read.
Right.
They just got me in the corner. So this is a lot. This is a lot to absorb because this technology has so surpassed. It's called black box technology. We don't know how this stuff works. We don't know the inner workings of it, right?
Right.
We just know. Have you ever tried to add a device to your Wi-Fi and all the little steps you go through? It should be easy, right?
Right.
But we don't know how that works. We just follow those steps. Therefore, it has surpassed us and it tells us what it wants us to do. And that's what's very interesting.
Have you ever wondered why we have restricted access? No one's allowed in the data centers to even do a tour. Do you know they blame it on HIPAA, even though if you walked in a tour, you'd never be able to see anything because it would be enclosed. But we're only shown AI production pictures of the inside of a data center. We're not really actually allowed to see it or go in.
Interesting.
Yeah.
surprised about that. You know, when I was a little girl living in Chicago, I walked through a data center at IBM with my father, and it was the big machines that sat in the big ice cold room, and you walk through, and all you saw were machines, you know, just swirling around. So it makes you wonder what they not want us to see, or not want us to ask questions about, because I mean, there's not much to machines, but would there be something else? What is their intent? This is a lot of money changing hands over this data. And the data is us. The data is us.
Well, I wonder sometimes, you know, they're building them out at a pretty fast rate. We have almost 4,000 of them in America,
Wow.
over almost 11,000 of them worldwide. And they're building them faster and faster and bigger. And the cities are making a ton of money off of the real estate. So they have them kind of bending over for these data centers. And the cities are happy to do it because they're all run by Nimrods. And then also you've got people not allowed in them. I think that at the rate they're going and building them, by the year 2030, you know, we're going to have so many of these in every city. And I actually do think they'll be used for other purposes other than data. I think at the technology that we have, we don't need large data centers like they needed in 1945 when the first one went up. We don't need that. We everything is basically run now, and it is smaller than ever. Your computer is a phone and a watch. I mean, this is ridiculous that we buy into these large data centers that we need them. And I actually do think they'll be used for something else. And I think that's why we're not allowed in. We're allowed everywhere. Why are we not allowed in there? We're not allowed in where the gold is, and we're not allowed in a data center. I mean, you can't even go look at the machines. I just find that very interesting.
Wow. Right. Yeah, it is suspicious.
Like building them right under our noses for a totally different reason. And someday we'll look back and go, we allowed those to be built, and the cities welcomed them for all of the cash, and everyone was on board and celebrating and drinking champagne over all these data centers going in, and we didn't stop it. And we should have known better, right? Because we didn't need them. And they're going to lie about the usage of utilities and water. And Larry Finch proclaimed over at Davos just recently that you are now on the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to getting your utilities and water, and data centers are now regarded as first on the totem pole.
Was this Larry Fink of BlackRock? Is
Yeah.
that he? Wow. Okay.
Yep. He said it. He goes, people are down here. Data centers are the top now. So that means we get them divvied out to us, which means they're going to be way more expensive. Yeah.
You mean like water?
Water and utilities. So they're going to claim that the data centers are taking all the bandwidth. They're going to claim that they're taking all the water, and it's going to be a big fat lie. They're lying about it. I 100% believe they're lying, and they keep utilizing this in the media as another sort of like lie that gets told over and over and over in the media. So everyone is going to buy into it and go, well, we have to have the data centers, and so I guess we just have to pay more. And people aren't going to fight it. And it's disgusting because I do think it's a lie. I do think there's a reason we're not allowed in these data centers.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we'll just have to keep searching.
I know.
Learning.
It's crazy. It is. It's crazy. Anyway.
It is. But it's the world we live in.
It's the world we live in.
Has far surpassed our innate ability to understand. Some things you understand so innately. This, it takes, we don't even understand.
This is why they had to control the elections, because they had to control who gets in a city. I used to do, city radio. I used to do radio for my city, and I used to out all the bad things that were being done, and they definitely wanted me off the air. And I was on the air 15 years for my community. And what's crazy is that they had to control the elections to control who sits on those councils and to control who sits as mayors, because if they didn't have that kind of control, you might have a freedom-loving person who actually was a patriot secretariat, get on the councils, become a mayor, and say no to the data centers, right? And say
Yep.
no to the huge amounts of money they're going to get for these real estate transactions. But they had to control elections because they had to make sure that those data centers went in and the 15-minute cities went in. So don't think for a second that when you vote, even in a local election, you're actually voting, because you're not. That software's changed, and the parties get to choose who gets the job. And it's always going to be somebody that won't say no to all of their big ticket items, data centers being one of them, for sure.
That's right. And you know what? And I think proof of what you're saying, because it's almost improbable that you think really that is true, but part of the proof is all of these outsiders who relocate to a random city and then end up as mayor. And you're like, this person's only lived here a couple of years, and they beat out all these old timers. They beat out, business owners, and they come from nowhere, out of nowhere, and they have the right connections to bigger political operators, and then they end up winning. And you go, wow, very little name recognition compared to the old timers, but they end up winning. And I think that's part of the proof.
Yep.
You are absolutely right.
We shall see. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. And I've been watching the elections for a long time, and I've been watching, these data centers going in and these 15-minute cities sort of slipping in and sliding in when no one's looking. And I'm telling you, I don't think I'm wrong on this. I really don't, because how do you get things done when everyone can look and take a photo and be very aware, right? How do you get things done for an agenda? How do you excuse it away? Same thing with the homeless being kind of sent away to centers for mental health help, which is like incarceration. They can't get out without the doctor signing on it. So we're taking away their rights as people, and people are sanctioning it because they go, oh, well, the homeless, all those problems. Well, okay, yes, you're going to have problems with homeless, right? Because there are some mental health challenges, but we already have programs for all of that. And the increase in violence hasn't been going on. It's about the same, but they've invented it as a new thing to worry about so that they can slide people into these centers and no one cares, because you're doing what's right. You're getting somebody into a center, but it's depriving them of their rights. So they do everything on the sly. They have to, and they have to have places. They have to have places where they can put people for not believing your government mental health status. So not believing the narrative mental health status. I mean, it's sad, but, and I hate it because I feel like, dun, 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 but this is where I think we're headed, and they always have to do things on lying about them. So what do you do? I know.
I didn't realize it was, I looked it up. China has a national standard for a 15-minute, they're called community life circles. So, if China's doing it, it must be a rotten idea, because, China is not interested in quality of life. That's not their primary interest. It's management of humanity.
Yes, I agree. It's gonna, it'll get crazy. By the way, I just wanted to mention tomorrow's show is George Webb, and then I'll be taking calls, but I can take some calls during George Webb too. I'm George Webb, reporter at large. We'll have to see what he brings to the table tomorrow. I'm sure he's always working on things, so always flying everywhere. So we'll have to see where he's been. So I appreciate that. Anyway.
He's got some great AI generated music videos on his X account that are so funny. Yeah, I'm very impressed by the AI generated music videos.
Oh, everything's fake and gay. When Candace says that, I will say this. I've done an awful lot of research, and the fakery is so bad, and I wish people on the right and the left could see it. I really do. I wish that it was. I wish that, it's pretty obvious. I mean, I don't know how people are still, after being told so many times, the hope rises. And then, of course, the drama plays out in front of everybody. And we've had nothing but drama. And man, I just hope the right and the left can see it, because we've got two extremes on either end that aren't seeing it, and it really worries me. And I think it's actually pretty obvious. So we've got to get people to see this. I mean, to see what's coming, what we're all sanctioning, and government doesn't know how not to lie. It's the MO of government, and the founders would have told you that. So it's pretty amazing that we keep believing that they're going to divulge their own secrets.
No,
and if
goal
they
is to
don't, you know what I mean?
self-sustain.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
it's all about survival of that bureaucracy.
It's
and
like
the entities.
it's like people that say, well, you're a conspiracy theorist, and it's true if MSN says it. And
Oh
if
my
Fox
God.
and CNN says the news hasn't substantiated that, Kate. So you're a conspiracy theorist. And I'm going, you mean the bought and sold news hasn't told you yet another lie? And so I'm the one you should question.
Oh,
Wow.
God.
Oh gosh. By the way, did Doge do anything? Nope.
No, I know they did delete some people who were 160 years old from the
Yeah.
Social Security, but
Mhm.
that was just math.
It was
That's
just it was a way to implement AI into our government, and it was a show pony. It was a show pony because Elon Musk is part of the government. So and I don't believe for a second he was ever behind some computer working hard. So it was definitely a ruse for sure for a while to keep everybody going. But Doge is working, and I'm like, no, it's not at the time.
This is what we've always wanted.
Mm-mm. Yeah,
Somebody to
it's-
go in and look for the corruption
Yeah.
and look for. But he did have some alarming things to say that really did agitate people, and then you can't tell that anything happened. But the government is too big to really have an impact. It's way too big.
Yeah.
Any small thing to have that kind of an impact.
Like
So-
like LB says, I saw where Musk wants to put up centers in space where we can't get to them. Yeah, we'll never be able to get
yeah,
inside a data
right?
center. And then of course, yes, Angel Blue says yes. Doge did data collection hours. Yes, it was data collection AI. It was a lot of things that we don't want to see. So
Right. Well, and if there's ever a mistake, if we ever say, well, you've got this wrong
Yeah.
about me, or you did this, there's no way to fix that.
I know.
This is all out of our ability to fix and repair. So that's part of the problem, that we can't just give them a blank card, and we can't stop saying this is not right. Look,
Yeah.
know,
And we're
look
being lied to. I know. And I'll get called crazy every day of the week, and people love to do it.
That's all right.
But it's okay. It's okay. I'll live. At least I told the truth. So
That's right. The truth prevails. Hopefully.
I sure appreciate you. Thank you. Make sure and visit my sponsors. Donate to the show. I would really appreciate that. January, February, and July are the 3 hardest months for somebody not bought. So, so please help the show out. And there's an address you can send a check to, but you can also Venmo. You can do those things too. Kate Daly Show on Facebook. Of course, this is on X. This is on everywhere. And so make sure and subscribe to this YouTube channel. And you'll be able to get the show, which I love. And of course, the sponsors, the amazing sponsors and products, because when you buy their products, you help me stay on the air. And I really appreciate that. Go get some Cardio Miracle. You'll feel tons better. And make sure and hit that sale for prepping and for traveling. Hit that sale at allfamilypharmacy.com for its ivermectin sale right now. It's huge. They do all kinds of new things too. Thanks, you guys. Appreciate you guys. Thanks, Susan.